Good morning all. Brad Scott from Genius Science, and basically I'll just give you a quick introduction to the volcano and the volcano issue. On the wall behind me here is the seismograph record for the last 24 hours from West Tongariro. It's one of the near seismograph sites, and essentially here is the volcanic earthquake sequence. Starting here, these are 1 minute intervals, so we're looking at about 15-20 minutes of strong seismicity directly associated with the eruption. What you will notice in the 12-14 hours on the image here before the eruption and the hours that have passed, about 10 hours now since the eruption, no change in the background seismicity, so no change in state at the volcano. We saw no escalation coming into the eruption, and we've seen no escalation post-eruption. This eruption has come on top of 3 or 4 weeks of unrest at the volcano. We've had volcanic earthquakes occurring at Tongariro in the Tongariro area. They've been sort of persistent there. We've also seen some changes in volcanic gas emissions. We've seen changes in the sulfur ratios and the carbon dioxide ratios, indicating some molten materials active in the volcano. There's some change in the volcanic gases. As I mentioned, we didn't see any significant escalation into this event. Volcanic eruptions, down this end is steam-driven eruptions, up this end are lava or magmatic-driven eruptions. We're down at the steam-driven end. This is appearing to us at the moment to be an eruption that's been driven from the hydrothermal system rather than from new molten material coming to the surface. We went down there this morning, just after first light, to try and quantify the effects. Unfortunately, the weather was against us. We were able to fly above the cloud. We could see the volcanic plume. It was a steam plume only, no discoloration of the plume, no indication of volcanic gas, no indication of volcanic ash or volcanic gas levels having changed, no discoloration of the plume. We were unable to see the impacts immediately around the craters, and we still can't confirm just which crater the eruptions have occurred from. The anecdotal evidence we have is suggesting Upper Tongariro is the most likely area where the eruption has come from. Downwind of the eruption, and I'll just change this image a sec. Don't have too many pages open. There we go. Just blow that up. This is an image of projected ash impacts. Tongariro volcano here, the thickest ash fall here, where the light westerly wind was blowing at the time, and distribution has been out towards State Highway 1. So we've got ashfall impacts in here near Lake Rotorua and across towards State Highway 1, and that's part of the process with the state highways closed during the night, just because we couldn't see. We've flown along the side here of Lake Rotorua under the cloud there. It allowed us, we could see some impacts on some of the local homes, the eastern end of Lake Rotorua. And that really briefly summarises it. We've had a small scale volcanic eruption. It appears to be driven from a hydrothermal rather than a magmatic process. There's been an ash plume generated. There's been ash fall downwind. I guess that kind of sums it up.
Well, it was about 10 to 12 last night, or maybe about 11:45. At first, I heard a big sound. It was like we have one of those dump trucks and it's full of rocks, and then it sort of sounded like it was tipping its load out down the mountain. So there was just a huge crashing sound at first, and then the eruption started. All the ash started dropping pretty much about 10 minutes after it started erupting. So we were in this last night, but coming back to it this morning, it's just left a whole big mess of mud and ash and everything, covered the roofs, and we had to disconnect all our water piping because we still collect water from the rain off the roof. So we had to disconnect all of that, pack up the one animal that I got, and yeah, returned this morning to have a look at the damage, and it's pretty much just a big muddy mess. Yeah, big clean up now, I suppose, and oh, we'll handle it. I don't know whether to be scared or excited at the moment.
Hi, I'm Philip Duncan with a special report on the Mount Tongariro eruption this morning. We've got with you the latest wind directions, wind speeds, what we can expect, where the ash might fall, and also what to do if you've got ash falling around you. We'll start off with some video sent in to us by EuroKiwi. This is of the ash on the desert road early this morning. And look at it, you could be forgiven for thinking that this was footage from the Curiosity rover that just landed on Mars. A significant amount of ash seen across the road there, and there have been some reports of that ash falling a little bit further, but not a great deal further at this stage. All right, so let's have a look first of all. What is the general situation wind-wise? We've got ourselves a light northwest flow, and that's the reason why people in Hawke's Bay are reporting a smell of sulphur in the air, and that's possibly because the wind flow from Mount Tongariro taking it right down there towards the Hawke's Bay area. This is the low that's coming in, and the area in the middle where the centre is, where the winds are very light, well, that's actually going to move upwards and across over the central part of the island. So we'll get onto that in a moment. First of all, I want to take you a little bit closer on in, and we can get a view exactly where the mountain is and where the eruptions are taking place. So here is the map of the North Island, Mount Tongariro, of course, in here with the Central Plateau volcanic areas. It's quite a complicated volcano. It's not just sort of perfectly shaped with the craters. You can see lots of areas with lakes and craters and steam vents and all this. So the eruption came out of there in the middle of the night. It wasn't a particularly huge eruption, but it did drop ash across the desert road as we just saw. Now this is looking north towards Lake Taupo. This is an area of concern if we get a southwesterly. That's what we saw with Mount Ruapehu. But in this case, it was actually a nor'wester blowing along here across the desert road, you can see. And further out, a little bit further we go, you can see Hawke's Bay over here in the distance, so that's why you're getting that smell of sulphur in the air. So if the ash does fall, it's falling over these ranges here. Not a lot of people live in this area. It is a bit of a farming community, but not a great, huge farming area to the east of the mountain there. More of a concern if we go west. So let's have a look at those wind maps, what is in store for the next couple of days. We'll start off now with noon Tuesday. You can see mostly light winds indicated by the blue here. And they've got a good tip for you if you're trying to figure out where the ash is going to go. Simply do this with your hands, and the V points to where the wind is coming from. So in this case, if we've got a northerly or a nor'westerly, you do the V upside down, and that's where the ash goes. If you've got a southerly, wind coming this way, point it to the south, and that's where the wind, where the ash would go. It would go, there we go, northwards to the northwest. So do the V shape, point it towards where the wind is coming from, and it's this area in here, that's where the ash will go. So in this case, as I say, it fans out to the bottom like that. So as we go to the next map from 10 p.m. Tuesday, still light winds across the central area. The dark blue indicates very light winds. So any ash that goes into the sky, likely to fall quite locally. And the next map's noon Wednesday, again, same story, light winds, a very gentle westerly flow. So again, that flow will be pushing just over the desert road if there are any more eruptions. And then we go to noon Thursday, and again, still calm winds, but you can see a very gentle southwesterly. And as I just showed you before, if you do that with your hands, it's hard to do on the old green screen, but it goes that way. And so you end up with the ash sort of moving this way generally. But like I say, light winds, that means more ash falls where the mountain is and less further afield. Before I go, don't forget GeoNet website. This is the website to go to for all the latest on the mountain. You can see the aviation colour code is red, volcanic alert level 2. You can see the webcams and all the other information. The other thing to note, if you do have problems with asthma, respiratory issues, if you're quite old and perhaps a little bit sick at the moment, or young children who also might be a little bit unwell, keep them indoors if you think you've got ash in the area or if you live near the mountain. Just keep those windows shut. And also don't forget drinking water coming off the roof. You might want to disconnect those rainwater tanks if you live anywhere through the Central Plateau region and eastwards towards Hawke's Bay, just to be on the safe side. That's all from me. We'll update you again on Wednesday.
Back to Breakfast One News reporter Ruth Wynn-Williams is live in Turingi this morning. Ruth, tell us what's the state of the roads there?
Good morning, Petra. Well, we're just on State Highway 1, and that's the main road through to Waiuru, and that just a short time ago was reopened. State Highway 46, that's the road through National Park, that still remains closed, and police say they will be assessing that road too very shortly.
We heard from Doc earlier that the mountain is open, although it is suspected people will be cancelling their trips to the regions. Search and rescue, have they been dispatched this morning?
Search and rescue went out at first light this morning, and they were basically doing a recce petra to make sure that no members of the public were left trapped in those huts overnight. There have so far been no reports of any casualties, no reports of any damage done by this eruption, so it's very much just a quick check for search and rescue to see what they can find up there.
Yeah, I guess it will take them a tiny bit of time. They've got 6 huts to check and clear. Let's talk about this ash cloud, because we're hearing Air New Zealand now has been delaying and potentially cancelling flights into the regions. What can you tell us about the ash?
That's right, ash has been reported as far east as Napier. I can't see anywhere I'm standing right now, but police have told me that just a little bit further up the road there is so much ash over the road that they're concerned that trucks driving through may stir that up and cause not only a disturbance to themselves while they're driving, but disturbance to other motorists passing through. They say with that ash that, you know, it is thick enough that you can see it on the ground, but you can still see, the white lines of the road moving through. So it's not, you know, it's not an amount of ash that you're going to wade through, but it is sort of a thin skin that is covering the ground. Around here, though, I can smell a distinct smell of sulphur. You know, you can smell it in the air. I could smell it immediately when we opened the door of the car and got out of the car, but physically I can't put my hand in it and show it to you.
All right, yes, and we're getting reports of sulphur smells from Napier, Hastings, all around the country. Tell us, what is GNS going to do this morning?
GNS are monitoring the situation. They have, of course, been monitoring the situation here for the last few weeks. You'll recall there has been some amount of seismic activity through the central region over the last few weeks, but they had thought that that was dying down. So the volcanic eruption last night did take them by somewhat of a surprise, you could say. The level of alert is a level 2. What that means is that there's been an onset of seismic activity here. It was, of course, at a level 1, while an onset of volcanic activity, I should say. It was at a level 1 while they were monitoring sort of the seismic activity in the region. Those levels can go up to a level 5, and that level 5 is for a hazardous and dangerous explosion. So, you know, there is quite a way to go before it gets to that point. But what I can tell you is that GNS are monitoring the situation, and they say, you know, they can't tell us today whether this is an isolated eruption or whether it's, you know, the sign of a continuing series of volcanic activity. There will, of course, be a media briefing very shortly. There's going to be a media briefing at 9 AM in Taupō. One News will, of course, be attending that meeting, and we'll have all the latest details for you from that.
Ruth Wynn-Williams from Turingi, thank you very much.